Hello, hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and today we are going to do a full face of makeup of all of the products that I used the most in 2023. We're going to break down the data analysis and all of that fun stuff, so I hope that you'll stick around, hang out, and let's dive into some makeup. Okay, so I need to get a few things out of the way. I'm sitting down to film today, so we're going to talk about it. I'm going to insert a clip here. I'm on the struggle bus today. Woke up with some TMJ pain and a migraine, so you'll see noise canceling headphones. You'll see the TheraFace, which I absolutely love, with the pointy, there we go, pointy attachment to really loosen those muscles up, and I'm gonna do my best. But I also need to pull myself together. I've got a few pretty important meetings later today. It's quite early, I'm exhausted. And we are also going on a date night tonight, so I figured what better way than the products that I leaned on the most in 2023. So all of that to say, I have my computer here. I did a breakdown of the products that I linked the most in my videos. I went about this a couple of ways because not every application video did I show and link my skin prep, so we'll talk about that. And also, not all of the videos on my channel are application videos, so bear that in mind as we go through this. Also, I didn't film every time I put on makeup this year, so we'll talk about if I think that it's accurate or not. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into skin prep. What's happening? Skin prep. All right, so I'm on like the last application of this, and it's because I don't always use a facial spray every time I do skin prep. It really depends on how long it's been since I applied my morning skincare, or if my skin is just in need of rehydration before I apply my skin prep. But my absolute favorite is the Fitglow Ceramide Toning Mist. I always want to say the next product name for this, but this one is my absolute favorite. It's in a recyclable aluminum bottle. It has the ceramides. It has some seed-derived ingredients like algae. I love this so much. And looking at the breakdown, I use this in 25% of my application videos. That kind of honestly strikes true to me because, again, I don't use it every time, but I do love this and I can't wait to get it on my face because I'm quite dry. I need the skin prep this morning. Woo. I also got my hair done yesterday, and I'm really trying not to get that spray in it to take away these lovely kind of very loose textured curls. I really want to learn how to do this. Anyway, moving on to the next step, which is my hydrating serum. So I use the Phytosurgence Submerge Hydrating Facial Serum. Again, a lot of good soothing ingredients. I rave about this in the last skincare empties. I also rave about it in a lot of other videos. It's just my absolute favorite hydrating serum. It soothes the skin. It adds a lot of hydration without being like heavy or sticky. It sinks in really well, but it also provides enough moisture that usually what happens is I apply this in my bathroom when I wake up and brush my teeth and all of that, and I'm still hydrated by the time I come in here to sit down to do makeup, that I don't always have to add moisturizer on top right away. I can kind of wait a few minutes. But oh, I love it so much. For Ceramide, I applied this in 70% of my application videos. Now, my skin prep has not changed. I have tried a couple of different mists throughout the year. However, this has not changed. So this would be 100% of my mornings and my skin prep where I'm doing makeup, skincare where I'm not being too lazy. It's 100% of the time. I absolutely love it. It's probably going to be in the top 3 of what I would recommend out of this video, which we'll get to at the end of this. But then moving into moisturizer, I also use Phytosurgence in this step, and it is the Verdant Forcefield. Again, 69% of my application videos I use this. This is also an everyday morning application for me, whether I'm wearing makeup or not. So this is 100% of the year, basically. Really love this. It has green tea, licorice root, centella, PHAs, allantoin, and panthenol. Again, another really great soothing moisturizer. It is a really interesting texture, almost like a hybrid cream and gel. And you saw it had green from the green tea, but it doesn't add any kind of color to the skin. However, the feeling is just lovely. I think if you're more traditionally cream or gel moisturizer person, you'll really enjoy this. I love this so much, and I take both of those products all over my face, including my eyes. Now, I have had a friend mention that Verdant Forcefield stings their eye a little bit, so just throwing that warning out there, but I've never had an issue. I love it so much. Oh, those 3 products just wrap my dry, dehydrated skin in such a lovely amount of moisture, and none of these have silicone either, so I've never experienced pilling or anything. They sit so beautifully under makeup. My skin is just dewy and hydrated and ready for whatever base I use. Even foundations that might look a little dry on my skin or dry out throughout the day, I notice, especially if I apply right after moisturizing, I don't have that problem. And I 100% attribute it to my skin prep and then also the SPF that we're gonna get into next. So, Live Tinted 3-in-1 Hueguard. It is SPF 30. It is a mineral sunscreen and it is slightly tinted. I have never had a white cast issue. I've also put it to the test with my very deeply complected friend. The words are going to be tough with this migraine, y'all. No white cast issue there either, so I have no problem recommending this to anyone and everyone. I've also used this as I prep other people's skin for makeup for weddings and just when I do my friends and family's makeup, and I have tested it on oily to very dry skin, my very dry dehydrated skin. It's so lovely. My husband even will use this as his SPF and we love it, hence the massive tubes that I have. I was tired of going through the smaller ones as fast as I was, so this one also showed up in 69% of my application videos. So as you can tell, and based on what I've told you, the skin prep has never changed for me. As soon as I tried the Live Tinted, I think in 2022, I have not used anything else for underneath makeup unless I test something, but I always go back to the Live Tinted. I just really love it. So far, there's no changes to what I used most on my channel, which is so funny to me. And I always go on the back of my hands. And I do sometimes let this skin prep and SPF sink in a bit if I'm using a foundation that is dewy and moisturizing. If I'm using a foundation that is kind of a little drier or satin to matte, I'll go in right away. The foundation that got the most amount of use on my channel also was not a surprise to me, and it is the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. Now I have switched shades. I used to wear Mont Blanc. However, as the year that I owned the bottle went on, it oxidized quite a bit in the bottle and ended up being too dark and too pink. So I have since switched to Siberia, which I think is a much better match. However, it is quite yellow. I would love to see NARS really come out with some like strong neutral shades, but who am I, you know? Now, this foundation was 40% of my application videos, which is no surprise. This is kind of my glam foundation. And usually when I film, if I want my skin to look quite perfected, this is what I'm going for. However, there are a few things that prevented it from being higher than that 40%, although I still do have this ranked in my top foundations. One of those things being that some days I go with just concealer, some days I go with a much lighter coverage like the Euphoria Skin Tint, like the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel, like the Rare Beauty Moisturizing Tint, all of those. So on days where I wasn't doing kind of like a full face or full glam, I wouldn't have used this. However, the other thing, towards the end of last year, that kind of took over in the place of the NARS, so when I want a full glam kind of look, is the LYS foundation, and I do really love that. I don't know that I can pick a favorite between those two. I think if you like one, you're really gonna like the other. However, the LYS is a lot dewier of a finish on the skin. Now, I am dewy with the NARS, and that is because of the skin prep underneath. The LYS, I think, doesn't need as much help in the skin prep department. However, the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation that I have on today is the first foundation that gave me a skin-like finish and didn't dry my skin out, but still provided a nice medium coverage. So the LYS and the NARS are pretty comparable in coverage. I would say the NARS might give you a little bit more, and it's a little bit lighter weight of a formula, but both are absolutely stunning. I love them both, and I'm gonna be so much happier today looking glam because of the products we're using. All right, then for concealer, I have the Rose Ink. I think this is called like the Hydrating Concealer. I have shade LX010. I've been using this, I think, for 2 years now. I think very shortly after I started my channel. This was the concealer that I used in 59% of my application videos over the last year. I am not shocked at all. This is still my #1 used concealer. There was a time where Kosas had my heart. I really got tired of dealing with it going off quickly. And also I picked up the Givenchy concealer this past year. And while I really liked it at first, and I still do enjoy it, it just doesn't supply the amount of coverage that I want, even on days where I'm doing kind of a lower coverage day, we'll call it. And the one that I've been using in place of the Givenchy is the Thrive Causemetics concealer. So really I'm only using the Rose Ink when I want medium to higher coverage, and the Thrive when I'm doing a lower coverage. And I can't say more about how much I love this. It's called Hydrating, and it is hydrating. It does not dry out. It also is the best when it comes to creasing for me, especially when I'm being kind of careful about application and not getting it in that crease area. But even when I do, like today, I'll show you, even when I do, it creases the least amount for me. So it does have a really nice dry down and set down. However, I don't get like a super dewy finish. If anything, it's kind of like a matte to satin maybe, but definitely more on kind of the matte side for me. But also sometimes it's hard to differentiate when you have such a dewy base with your skin prep, because that is always going to show through my application. But I love the coverage. It gives nice full coverage. I'm already feeling quite glam, which makes me happy. But yeah, no surprises there, and it is still kind of holding that #1 spot for me. The NARS is like tied with LYS right now. You'll see throughout the year probably in my Shop My Stash, I'm gonna waffle back between the two so that I can make up a final decision. All right, then for powder. The powder that I used in 62% of my application videos was the Westman Atelier Vital Skincare Pressed Powder in Translucent. As you can see, yes, we have been putting in work. This powder lasts me so long too because I use a small brush. This is the e.l.f. This is the controlled setting brush. This is the new one from their kit that they just released. I'll link below. I love this brush. I think that it's important. Some of the other brushes I think can be easily replaced, but this one is the perfect amount of flexibility and size to set powder with. I'm so happy they came out with a new one, but I use such a little amount because I'm just setting around my eyes, my nose, and my chin. And then if I have a big spot that I've worked hard to conceal, I will set over that. Oh, blend that out. The reason I love this powder, and I'm not shocked to see it in the top spot, #1, the packaging is gorgeous. It's nice and heavy. It feels very luxe when you use it. This is a very expensive powder. The reason why it quickly rose to the top for me is because it's a very, very light powder. I'm someone who can't use a lot of powders because it's very visible on top of my skin. This one, however, it's like traceless, and it still does the setting that I need it to keep things in place and to kind of dim the shine a little bit without making it look very, very matte and very powdery and textured. I absolutely love this. I will say that if this is a little out of your price range, the next powder to me that I would use, and what I used for almost 20% of my application videos, was the Well People Super powder brightening powder. Sorry, they changed the name. The name of that product is so annoying to me. But the Well People Super Powder is like 20 bucks compared to 65, I think. I love this. I'm going to be really sad when it goes, but I'll have no problem falling back on the Well People. It's just as light. However, if you are deeper complected than I am, which is not hard to be deeper than I am, the translucent of the Westman Atelier might be a little bit too brightening, and the Well People original shade might be a little too brightening, but they have since come out with one that's a little pinky, but it's a little deeper. So check that out if you want to save a little bit of money, but this is the best right here. All right, moving on to brows is going to be a little bit tricky. So the number one brow color product that I used this year was no shock to me, and it was the Benefit Gimme Brow. I use this in 55% of my videos. It's getting ridiculously hard to open, and you can see that it's quite short now. If you watch all of my videos, you'll catch that like my opinion on this particular product changes fairly often, and that is because of a few reasons. So when I only use it a couple of times, I'm like, oh, it's just not my favorite. But as I continued to use it, I was like, actually, I quite like the finish of this. What's interesting about this with the Volumizing Plus Fibers is it does put down fibers, and if I swatch it, you might be able to see them a little bit better. Let's see if that shows up. You can kind of see them littered in there, but what's interesting about this is it's quite waxy and it's not super pigmented. So depending on what other products you want to put in your brows, that is what's going to tell you if this is the product for you. If you're only using this product, it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. It lays down just the right amount of pigment so that if you're someone who's not super confident in your brow drawing abilities, it's not going to be overwhelming or difficult for you to use. However, if you're someone who likes the laminated effect, you're going to have to apply this product first because it is so waxy. Sometimes getting it to lay down pigment over top of another product that is holding your brows in place is quite difficult. So that would be my suggestion to you. If you absolutely need to laminate the brows first, this is not going to be for you. If you can put this in place if you can put this on before your brow gel or whatever you're using to kind of groom them and keep them in place, then I think this would be perfectly fine. But I use the shade 2.5. It's a perfect match literally to my hair, and I'm pretty happy with it. However, if we talk about what I'm using now for color, I'm most likely reaching for the e.l.f. Bite Size Brow Palette. It has 2 powders in 2 shades and then 2 waxes in clear and your shade. What am I thinking? And I have absolutely been loving this. I love using the powder, which you need very little of, to do brows on days where I want a fuller brow like I would get with the Benefit. But on days where I'm just grooming them, I love using that taupe wax, and I have mine in the shade taupe. I'm using that colored wax, and that's really all I need. And this is, I think, $3. You can't beat it. This is probably what I would recommend in place of, because it's a heck of a lot easier to control powder in your brows than a pencil for me. And also the wax makes it easy, and it's kind of like everything you need for brows in one little bite-sized palette. And then the next product that I have is the Merit Brow Gel. I used it in 55% of my application videos along with the Benefit. Now, I just recently put this in my empties pile, so I no longer have one to use in this video. But I will say that is still one of my favorite brow gels that I've ever used, because it deposits enough color that if you want to use it on its own, it will give you the effect that you want. However, when you layer it, it just grooms them and holds them in place. Now, it's not a super hold product, but it will keep them groomed throughout the day, and I appreciate that, and it adds just the right amount of color to the strands. It also really evenly distributes the pigment per hair almost, so that if you're like me and you're not blessed with a lot of visible hair on the tails of your brows or just in general, it does deposit enough on each to give you a fuller looking brow, which I really appreciate. It's not kind of like smearing the color across the top of the brows. It's a good job of kind of like coating the individual hairs. But I'm gonna skip that today. I think what I have in front of me that I will use, and I have been using outside of the e.l.f. Bite Size Brow Palette, is the Live Tinted Hue Brow. Now, I'm only using this today because, I don't know, I haven't really used that clear wax. I mostly use the taupe, but I do really love this, and this is one of those products that's really going to hold your brows in place if you like a more laminated brow. I just like to groom mine a little bit, not necessarily have them fully standing up on the ends, but I don't really want to add any more color, so that's what I'm using today, but I still highly, highly recommend the Merit Brow Gel. All right, let's get into a really interesting category to me, which is bronzer. So I used the Gucci Soleil Eclat bronzer 31% of my application videos, but I also used the Phytosurgence Rosy Daybreak 2 in 21% of my application videos. Now, why this is interesting to me, I thought the Gucci would be higher than it is, and a couple of reasons could be for that. There was a period of time where I wasn't posting as regularly on my channel, which could account for that, but also surprising because prior to the Phytosurgence release, this was the best bronzer match for me. It was the rosiest and more neutral leaning than the majority of my bronzers, even though it was quite pink. But Phytosurgence has only been released less than 6 months, I think, and it's coming up behind the Gucci quite quickly, and that is because this is my perfect bronzer shade. I broke mine, and I actually just ordered a replacement, but I broke mine, so this is what I would prefer to use. Since mine is broken and it could get quite messy, I'm gonna try the Gucci just because I really haven't worn this in so long that it will be very interesting to see how I like it now. And when I want a super, super bronzed look, I still go back to this because it straddles almost like a sunburn and a bronziness for me, which is very true to what my skin would do. The Phytosurgence, which I'll link the video down below where I swatch it, but I also have used this in all of my videos since it came out. I love it that much, but the Phytosurgence is much more natural. It looks like it belongs on my skin. It's just like a nice kiss of color. This is like, you're bronzed, ma'am. So let's go ahead and try this one today. And because this is such a wapow bronzer for me, I like to use it on a big fluffy brush. This one is from Beauty Pie. It's the All Over Face Powder. Oh, I'm excited and nervous. I can overdo it with this one quite easily, but I still do, I think, really love this. It's just that the Phytosurgence is a much better color, and I don't have to be as careful about it. However, when I want something in the summertime that is like, you're a bronzed goddess, probably will reach for this, but that'll be interesting to watch out for once the weather heats up. But see, like, I'm okay to stop there, and I know when I was using this regularly, I was adding more than this. But there you go. There is the Gucci. And I do compare these two products swatch-wise in that Phytosurgence video that's linked below if you're curious about that. But this product is really nice. It lays on the skin beautifully. It is quite pricey, but at the time it was the only color that I really loved applying to my face that wasn't glittery. It does say it's matte, and it is slightly mattifying, but again, with the products that I choose, I maintain a lot of that radiance there, and it also is quite blurring and smoothing. But you can see here, it's quite pink. Looking at it close up in the viewfinder, I do prefer the Phytosurgence color. It's just, yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens this year and this summer. All right, for blush, it should be no surprise to you if you have been on my channel for any length of time. The Phytosurgence Skin Spark Blush Balm was 70% of my application videos, and for over half of that 70%, it was a very specific shade. So the shade that I used the most, of the product I used the most, was Condensate. I have used so much of this, and it's still, you can see the dent I've made, but it still doesn't feel accurate to how much I use this. I've used this on my eyes, I've used this on my lips, I use this on my cheeks. I use this on my cheeks the most. It is the absolute most perfect shade for me. Do not be afraid of the shade that it looks like in the pan. Once it's on the skin, it takes on the loveliest rosy shade. Like that comes from this. It totally depends on your undertone. If you have slightly olive, if you're fair olive, slightly green, I have yellow-green undertones, this is the perfect blush. You need no other blushes. It's also beautiful on hazel eyes. It really makes them pop, and it just looks like a very natural wash of color. It's what I had on in my last 2 videos. I just love this product so much. It is the best. And let's go ahead, stop yapping, and apply it. I go straight into my pots with a brush. I don't like sticking my finger in it, but also it's just easy too. It's like one step. And I'm using the Rare Beauty blush brush for this. It's a beautiful kind of stippling brush, and I will apply it. And I pat to apply this product. It's just so easy to blend. It requires very little work to blend, and it gives you a nice dewy finish that's not super shiny, and it doesn't remain sticky on the skin. It does have a bit of a dry down. I love it. I've never had issues with longevity of these Phytosurgence products. They last all day for me, and they just make my skin look super healthy, and it's like the perfect shade. I'll never get over Condensate. I wish Condensate would be the new pillow talk. Do you know what I mean? Like, give me Condensate in every formula ever. It's just so stunning, and I can't stop adding more. And I talk about this a lot in my Low Spoons makeup video, why I love it so much, so I will link that down below as well. But yeah, this is still a daily staple for me. Even when I take my routine down to 3 products, this is one of them, and I will use it on my eyes, lips, and cheeks. Okay, moving on to eye products. This one's really interesting to me. So the thing that I switch up the most is my eyeshadow. I am pretty consistent with my base. As you've seen, we're up into like the 50% and above with most of these products, and that's where I leave my base. This is my favorite base. I love it so much. There are some products that I've switched up a bit here and there, but for the most part, I'm still extremely happy with this face of makeup. I know it's gonna last. I'll insert a clip at the end of this when my day of work is over. But as far as eyeshadow goes, one did show up about 15% in my application videos, and that is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. I absolutely love this palette. This is one of the only neutrals eye palette outside of maybe Lawless and Hindash that is actually neutral. You get a good mix of some that might sway a little warm or a little cool, but for the most part they're straddling neutral, which is what someone with a neutral skin tone with that yellow-green undertone needs. And so I still love this very much, and I think that if you can still get it, if it's still available, it is absolutely worth the money. I'm surprised that this didn't show up more, but usually when I sit down to film, I'm trying to play around with eyeshadow a bit more, so I know that this showed up a lot more in my daily life. It has some of my favorite one and dones. I just love it so much, but because I'm a little crunched for time, I'm going to kind of whiz through a quick eyeshadow look, and we'll talk about the next product. Alright, so I just applied 3 shadows really. I did a quick crease with my most used shade probably in this palette. I love this shade, it's perfect. I lined with the shimmery deep brown, and then all over the lid with a finger I took the middle celestial type shade. I know a lot of people can say this is super boring, but when it comes to practicality, I'm using a quick kind of neutral palette where the colors just naturally live in like a bronzy area, but one that doesn't swing too warm because that doesn't look right on my eyes. It makes me look kind of sick. So I absolutely love that palette. It's super easy. That took me no time at all. And I will kind of insert here that as far as eyeliner goes, I don't use eyeliner all the time. Even when I'm doing a look like this, I'll just use a powder to line my eyes. But if I'm doing a liquid look, it is no doubt Beauty Pie's Precision Liner. It's $9, or it was at the time that I last purchased. It has lasted forever. It's perfect. It doesn't skip a lot. And then for pencil liners, it's always going to be Victoria Beckham. It's just the #1 for me, hands down. I have repurchased Cocoa and Black because I couldn't find them, and that's probably why they didn't show up in my links as much, because I didn't have them to use, and they're my absolute favorite, so that is what I would absolutely use. And I will say, if the Makeup by Mario is no longer available, or it's a little out of your price range, I do think the Dreamy Dozen by Lawless kind of fills this gap as well. There are some that lean a little bit warmer than the Makeup by Mario, but it's still absolutely lovely. Just a nice one and done neutral palette. They're even about the same size. I love it so much. I will say there's a big cost difference. I think $30 to $40. This is a metal palette that is pretty heavy. This is kind of your traditional cardboard. Formula wise, I do think the special shades in the Makeup by Mario are a little bit more impactful and special than Lawless, but Lawless also has a beautiful inner corner shade that is good for very fair skin tones. This shade right here that Makeup by Mario does not, and actually I'm gonna add that. I'm cheating a little bit, but I'm really trying to feel pretty today. She's going through it, okay? Just a little hit to the inner corner. Then as far as mascara goes, this one is a little interesting as well. There was a 4-way tie for mascara. Now, one of them is the L'Oreal Age Perfect, easy to remove, waterproof, the tubing formula, which was no surprise. I really love that formula. It's just kind of hit or miss because you never know if it's going to be available or what the heck's going on with that formula. L'Oreal, please get it together. Also change the name. The second one is also from L'Oreal, and it is their original voluminous mascara in Deep Violet. I really love that one. If you have hazel or green eyes, it definitely makes them pop, and it is definitely deep enough of a violet that you get the definition that you want from a mascara. But then the other two that tied for 10% are both from Thrive, and these are the ones that I would have guessed got the most use, and I'm shocked that the Liquid Lash tubing formula from Thrive was not a clear winner in this category. But I'm also not surprised that the Liquid Lash Volumizer, which is the non-tubing formula, also kind of rose through the ranks pretty quickly. This one, it was at 10% as well, and it is newer, so it was just released last year. I really love this one, and that's what I'm going to use today, because sometimes if the mascara effect is worth it, I absolutely love the removal process of a non-tubing mascara if I'm already going to be emulsifying kind of like a more glam look. I also don't mind a non-tubing formula if I'm not going to be out where there's irritants that can kind of get stuck to the mascara. I really rely on tubing formulas for allergy reasons, but I really do love this volumizing one. However, if you're a Beauty Pie member, I think you can get the same effect from the Uber Volume Boost mascara. And I really love that one, and it's half the cost of this. However, if you're not a Beauty Pie member, that's kind of a moot point, and this is my favorite out of all of the non-tubing mascaras that I've tried in the last 2 years, I would say, outside of the Beauty Pie one. So I do really love this one. I will say, though, when it comes to tubing formulas, and it is surprising to me that I split between the L'Oreal and the Thrive in a way. Kind of not, because I really love that L'Oreal one. But one that I'm going to predict rises through the ranks a lot this year is going to be the e.l.f. Extender Mascara that we talked about in my last Shop My Stash video, which again is linked down below. Absolutely love that formula. It's $7. You can't beat it. And while it's not a one-to-one replacement of the Thrive, I think that it comes very close to the L'Oreal. The wand is different. It's not my favorite wand, but the formula itself is really nice, and $7, you know, I'm here for it. I am here for it. All right, we are on the last step, which is lips. Lips is just like eyeshadow for me. I switch it up every day, so I was kind of shocked to see that there was a more clear winner, because for 28% of my application videos, I used the Fitglow lip liner in nude, which is also surprising because I don't always wear lip liner. I've tried to get into it a little bit more this past 6 months, but it's really shocking because a lot of the use of this happened earlier in the year before I got the Lawless. I still really love this color. It's really just kind of my lips, but maybe a little warmer, a little more tan and warmer, but I still do really love this formula and also this shade. This makes me feel like I need to pull this back into my daily kit and kind of do a compare off with Lawless, if you will. But I usually just line them quickly, and then the lip gloss that I use the most, which was 14%, which I'm surprised that this is the one, but also not really, because I should say what it is. The Posh Gloss by Victoria Beckham is such a nice formula. It's unscented, and the shade Bikini is a nude that I have always looked for but haven't found, and it's that pinky beige. Honestly, would be very close to Cookie from In Beauty if the Victoria Beckham's a little out of your price range. Also, that one smells absolutely delicious, but I do really love this lip gloss, and it is really funny to me to win the lip gloss category. You only have to be used 17% of the time, but I love switching up my lip gloss, okay? I also think it's a perfect complement to the rest of the face that we did today. I want to get into my final thoughts around this look and around the products that I use the most. All right, so that concludes my most used makeup of this year. I hope you enjoyed this. I thought this might be more interesting for me than to try and go and pick my favorites of the year. It's nice to do kind of a data analysis. I love data. I love analyzing things. And it's really interesting to me that all of my most used products, outside of my base, because I know that I very rarely stray from that, but the blush, bronzer, eyeshadow, and lips kind of were a cohesive, everyday glam, soft glam almost look. I love it so much. I feel so much better being put together to go into my meetings in my day and just feel little bit more pep in my step because I'm put together. Absolutely love it. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you like this format of video. I would love to do this again at the end of 2024. Let me know if you track how often you use something, or if you know things that are for sure your favorites. And also let me know if your base stays the same, because that's something that I'm not trying to mess too much with. But yeah, absolutely love it. I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I hope to see you in Wednesday's video. I'm not 100% sure what it'll be yet. We'll know in a few days, but yeah, I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Bye.